Welcome to another week of Fabrengen on the Sicha, Fabrengen on Air. Today we're going to be talking about the wise ones, the rebels, and the salamander. We have the schus, we have the honor to have Rabbi Silberstein from Ithaca, New York, Shliach in Ithaca, New York, and Cornell University. Join us today as we Fabreng about the Sicha. How are you?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
Baruch Hashem. So this Sicha, the Rebbe starts with quoting Masechtas Chagigah about Amar Abavo, Amar Abelazar. Almidei Chachamim ein shel Gehenim sheletes bohen, kal v'chomer misalamandro. So as the Rebbe begins this Sicha, he quotes this Gamara about a salamander. So Reb Eli, if you can give us the zoological context of what this salamander is all about.
You know, if Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't a zoologist, I don't know if I am one, but it says, the Gamara says, well, Moshe is a zoologist, because it says he took every animal and he showed it. There's not much that we know, at least in the contemporary world that we live in today, what particular animal is referring to. I can just see how critics who read this Gemara would say this is sort of a fiction, or who knows.
Right.
But Chazal took it seriously. There is such an animal who, Rashi here said, I think it's Rashi here in Chagigah that mentions that it's an animal that's born out of fire. That's what the Gemara says. But Rashi mentions some details that to get this animal created, you have to have 7 years of a fire burning in one place, and after 7 years consistently having a fire burning, this animal crawls out from the fire, and it looks like a mouse, like an achbar. That's one place. Rashi in Chulin has a slightly different version of this. Rashi uses the word kishuf, chashvim, getting them out of fire, which has caused a major commotion amongst the Meforshim. How can we say that it's through kishuf? Because we know what the Targum says. Tosfos brings it here in the end of Chagigah. He says the Targum Yonason, but some say it's Targum Yerushalmi. It's teaches that one of the Shmoyne Shrotzim, some say it's the Tzov, Tin Shomes, one of the Shmoyne Shrotzim is the salamandra. So the Torah is going to give us halachas about a type of animal that Machashvim create. Machlal, they say, how can Machashvim create from nothingness? So Machashvim can't create Esh Me'ayin. So the Chassam Sofer has the whole thing that I saw cited in his name. I didn't see it inside. That it's an animal that comes from fire. Apparently, there's such a creature, just like there are creatures in the water.
Right.
So there are creatures in fire that come out of fire.
Interesting.
And I saw that a very interesting nekuda in a sefer brings from the Ramak, that the salamander, the Yesoida Eish, is more dominant there. So some animals, the more Yesoida Mayim, that's why they live in water. Those animals that have a greater preponderance of Yesoida Eish, so they can live in the fire and not be burned, because Eish is not affected, not phased by Eish. Fire is only, only enhances of the fire. So, anyways, that's what the way they and clear Chazal believed in it as a fact, because so the Chassam Sofer says that the Machashvim, he uses the word to the mountain, volcanoes. It seems like he's describing a volcano, that they come out of volcanoes where there's a lot of fire, and for some reason, to get them out of their natural habitat, which is in a volcano, in a place of fire with extreme heat, you need kish machashvim. But the machashvim, they need to make a fire wherever they want to draw this salamandra. They create a fire so that there would be an environment for that animal to be able to exist. That's how the Chassam Sofer, I think, explains it.
Interesting.
But the Gemara says that Chizkiyahu Melech, his father Achaz was Melech Yisrael, was Melech. Chizkiyahu Melech was a son of the Melech. Achaz was a Rasha. He was promoted Avodah Zarah. Achaz sacrificed some of his children to a type of moilech. It's not mamish moilech, Avodah Zarah, fire, where they would burn their kids. He wanted to burn his son Chizkiyahu as a child, and his mother was very afraid. But she covered him with the dam of a salamander. So the father took him through. Can you imagine? The father sacrificed his son to Avodah Zarah, a fire. He put him into the fire, and he didn't die because his mother covered him with the dam of a salamander. So apparently, Chazal take it literally that there's such an animal, even though I'm not sure how we would. As zoologist, I ain't, and I for sure can't tell you without being a zoologist what that is really. But of course, for us, it's relevant. Is the inyan, the nekudim.
Right.
The Rebbe gives such a beautiful spin to this. The salamander represents our inyan, the contradiction, the dichotomy of someone who comes from a place which is kulei kodesh. Kol mitziyusai emerges from fire. Right? We see later the Gamara, it says, fire is Torah, dvorai kaish, and yet it can be a balavera where it goes down to Gehenna. It's a very interesting phenomenon. The whole sichas, I think, for me, it's one of the most striking parts, besides the whole build-up and the explanation in the Gemara and how everything fits. There's some nekudas here in the sichas that is very, very interesting, very, very inspiring. It's both inspiring and also indicting.
Right.
I think that. It tells you that you can be a big Rosh Yeshiva and be a big, Yonamais.
Right.
So let's. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. I want to go ahead of myself.
I want to get back to that Nekuda, the contrast, the opposites that the salamander possesses. But let's just start with the there's two Kal V'chomers in the Gemara. One from Rebbe Lazar, connecting Talmidei Chachamim Mikal V'chomer from the salamander, and then the Rish Lakish saying that even Pesha Yisrael are protected from the Eish, the fire of Gehenim, because of a Kal V'chomer Mimizbach Hazav. And the Rebbe asks many questions in the beginning of the Sikha, but I guess the core idea which the Rebbe is going to base the whole biur is on the fact that why did we choose the Kal V'chomer of salamander in connection to Talmidei Chachamim, and why did we use the Kal V'chomer of Mizbach Hazav in connection with Pesha Yisrael?
Right. And what is Pesha Yisrael?
Right. And what is a Talmud Chacham?
Right. Well, a Talmud Chacham, we can say, I learned Torah. But Pesha Yisrael, the Rebbe takes it out of its literal meaning. It's normally we know Pesha Yisrael, right?
Right.
But in that's L'cheret HaKipshat. But based on the Alter Rebbe in Torah, as you see in the footnotes, the Alter Rebbe in several places, in Parshas Vayakel, and in Torah, the part, the Chassidische Parsha, the Alter Rebbe says, can you say it means Pashta Pesha Yisrael Kipshutei, because it says Melei Mitzvahs Kerimen, a Pashta Pesha Yisrael, which is a Koifer HaKoil, was shaykh to say is Melei Mitzvahs Kerimen. This is the Alter Rebbe. So Pesha Yisrael, a Yid, which is a Yorev Sholem, on the one hand, is what in the Rebbe, really, in terms of Averes, he's not much different than the Talmud Chacham. It seems in the Rebbe Sicham.
Right.
It's just it's a different relationship he has with Torah. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, so go ahead.
So the Rebbe begins the explanation, the beer and Ois Daled, with two fundamental, I guess, not missions, but components of the mission of Dir B'Tachtonim. There are two components. There's Torah and there's mitzvahs. And the yichud, the oneness that when a yid from mitzad the Jew, mitzad the yid, when a yid learns Torah, there is a certain oneness with Torah, and then there's a different type of relationship a yid has with mitzvahs. So if you could elaborate the difference.
Yeah. That makes a difference between yichud and bittul. Yichud and bittul are two separate relationships. Yichud is oneness. You become synonymous with the thing. You and the thing are just synonymous, the same thing. Bittul means the opposite in a way. You have to be mevatel something. you are a separate Metzias, but you mavatlat Metzias in deference to something else. And these are completely opposite relationships. When you say Yichud, Torah is Yichud. And this is a very unique type of relationship that only Torah has. I mean, it's full of Chassidus, this idea. The Rebbe's Mamorim is full with this idea of between Torah and mitzvahs. But the Ikon Nekuda, which, I mean, in the Rebbe shows how these Mamor Chazal, Shlokish with Rebbe Vo, reflect this in Inyan Chassidus that talks about these two inyanim of Torah and mitzvahs. And Torah is the inyan from Yichud, but you become one mitzvah with the Lakus. That means you become subsumed by a Lakus, and you become nishapach to a mitzvah of a Lakus. You're not a separate mitzvah. Whereas mitzvahs, it's the way the Rebbe puts it in a lot of places, is the word mitzvah means there's a mitzvah and there's a mitzvah. Right away, you're setting up a stage for two separate things, a mitzvah and a mitzvah. The concept of a mitzvah, by definition, necessitates the two separate entities. They're not the same thing. There's a mitzvah, and there's clearly a mitzvah who is separate from the mitzvah. And the purpose of the mitzvah is that despite the fact that the two separate things, the mitzvah, and he is the mitzvah, and he is the mitzvah, that they should have a relationship. In other words, the whole concept of a mitzvah is that there is distinctiveness of two separate things that are nischaber through a mitzvah. The moment the mitzvah becomes ois mitzvah and becomes mitzvah, then it's what shaykh a mitzvah here.
It's not in the gather of mitzvah.
The Rabbi explains the mitzvahs b'telos lasad love. What's that mitzvah b'telos lasad love? Of course there'll be mitzvahs, but the whole concept of a mitzvah won't exist because we'll be one with the lakus. So the whole context of a mitzvah is not shaykh in that kind of environment.
Right. So
the whole of a mitzvah is necessitates that there's a welt where there is a duality. That's what a mitzvah means. A chibur between two things that are very different. It's like a Talmud and a Rav. There has to be a Rav and there has to be a Talmud. And there's a relationship. Also a Rav and a Talmud. In Torah, it's very different. In Torah, the Pshat, the Torah says, the Rebbe says in some Maimorim, Torah is the Pshat, this is the Eibish's Torah. Shashuim lefonov, this is the Eibish's Torah. In other words, Torah is not designed for us. Torah is the Eibish's world, is his world. Torah is the world of the Eibishter, where the Eibishter is misanik and mishtashea with chachmasa yizbarach. He gives us an in. He lets us into his world. And once we get in, we're lost in his world. We're no longer there. We're in another world. And we become completely subsumed by his world. Mitzvah is the opposite. Mitzvah is Eibishter says, no, you're there. Oh, I see you as a Metzias. And let's create a relationship, a bridge between these two worlds, your world and my world. Torah is not like that. In other words, mitzvah is like it's kind of designed for us. The whole word mitzvah is there's a commandment. Commandment means that there's someone who you're commanding.
Right.
Torah is not, Torah is Torah. The Eibishter, it's a world. And the Eibishter gives us a window where we can get in that world. This roimamti, what the Rebbe brings almost from Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi said, Rabbi Yosef says, Kama Yosef Vika B'Shuka, Shenis roimamti. I'm all transformed and elevated into another world. I'm not the same person. It's interesting because the Rebbe brings a Mokamom Enim and Amida is the ultimate
proof.
That is the ultimate demonstration, the ultimate expression of this idea that suddenly Mokem is not a Metzias B'fnei Atzmai. See, when you have a nest, which is, let's say, in the base of Mikdash, so the Oren was one nest, but there were other Nisim, Asora Nisim. The Gemara says, attack at the end of Chagigah, an Omet earlier, the Gemara says that one of the Nisim was that Kesiduroi Silukai, that the Lechem upon him, when it's 8 days later, or 7 days later, the bread was as fresh as the day it was baked. It was a nest. Yeah, of course, it defies nature. So, in other words, what you're saying is it doesn't operate. The bread is bread, but there's one particular inyan that didn't function according to nature. But here he's saying Makamayim means that midah itself is love. Is not mukta by midah. Midah itself is by misalakus. It's not that we're transcending midah. It's midah gufa is lamayla midah. It's a whole. That's a yichud. That's prat yichud. That gvul itself is bligvul bemis. Not that there is a isarvus of two things.
Right.
It's a whole different.
Wow.
As if verstand also in even that it's the ultimate expression of what Torah is. Right. Anyway,
there's a story of Der Volpe, the Talmud of the Magda Mimezrich, and he had some challenges in life, and they say he became an alcoholic, and he used to go from inn to inn. He would go from inn to inn, even though he said a lot of l'chaim, he would share chassidus that he heard from the Magids. So there was a younger group of chassidim that used to, chepe him a little bit, find out what his life was all about. And they always saw that he had a leather pouch with him. So they used to talk between each other. The young chassidim would talk and say, he probably has some ksavim, some manuscripts from the Magid inside. So one time he was talking in the inn, he said a lot of l'chaim, and he walked out for a moment. So the younger chassidim grabbed his pouch, opened it up, and began looking for the ksavim. The Avropa came back in and caught them red-handed with his bag, with his pouch. And he said, what are you looking for? He says, we thought maybe there's some ksavim, there's some manuscripts. So he said to them, he says, you see, that's your mistake. You see the Rebbe, ksavim, and the chassid as three separate entities. The way we used to learn as older chassidim, the ksavim became our reality, our identity. We embodied chassidus. It became one, like he's talking here about Torah, becoming one.
So the Rebbe always said that his kashrus is through the Torah of the Nasi. I mean, it's also following the Miftzayim, following the Rebbe's Hoyroes, but particularly there's always an emphasis on learning his chassidus, his Torah, his chassidus, because there's something unique about the relationship through Torah Dafka, because that's yichud, that's not bittul. There's a bittul to a Rebbe, there's a yichud with a Rebbe. It's a whole different concept. And here this comes across very strong with the salamander, what's very striking is the Nekuda the Rebbe brings out that by the Talmud Chacham mekenim nicht rufen apoishi Yisrael. He does averes too. They really mitzvah averes. There's not much difference between the two. They both have averes. It's just because his relationship with Torah is such that he became one inyan with Torah, one mitzvah yichud mamish gewon Torah. Mit Torah is ein Zach, right? It's one thing. Maybe you can't call him a Peish Yisrael, be bezoyin Torah. If you call him a Peish Yisrael, you're calling him means you're calling the Torah Peish Yisrael. Chas v'shalom zing az Zach. Right. The other guy had a verbunden through mitzvahs. Mitzvahs and him are still two separate things. So calling him a Peish Yisrael is nicht bezoyin of the mitzvah. It's interesting. The Gemara says avera mechaber mitzvah, ve'en avera mechaber Torah. In light of this sicher, in Saita, we always find the Gemara in Saita, that an avera can affect the mitzvah that you do. It somehow contradicts it, it compromises it, but avera cannot compromise the Torah. The integrity of Torah that a person embodies is not affected by the avera. Right? The Gemara there in Saita there, right. But that's Megan on the woman, the Saita. This Gemara there, it receives a whole new meaning based on the sicher. That means the relationship with Torah is so unique that Torah can be at the same time synonymous with you, and you're still still you're a balavera, right? And you go to Gehenna. You go to Gehenna. We can't call you Peish Yisrael because you're Torah. At the same time, you're Hepech Torah. You've done things which sends you to Gehenna. It's this dichotomy of Torah, and we need to think about it more because the Rebbe in the Maimon, there's a Maimon, the Maimon Mugadik Maimon Ela Mishpatim Memalav, Mamish a fascinating Maimon, Mamish Gishmak Maimon. The Rebbe talks about the infant Torah, and as was so the Rebbe there talks about this unique connection we build through Torah that the Chazal say on the one hand. It's Torah Savaya, but it's also Torah Soy, Horaise de Lehu. Right? Why a Chochem, a Rav, Shemochal Kvedik Vede Mochel, Lachir, it's not what he's covered, it's the Torah. A Melech can't be Mechel on his cover because it's not his cover, it's the cover of the Am.
Right.
Cover of the Keser, which is Hechef and Melech, the way we interpret it. But A Rav can be Moichel is covered. Where is Moichel is covered? It's not his covered, it's also the Torah is covered. Why say that he can be? So the Gemara says, because it says, comes his. So the Chassidus Taiches in the Gemara, it's usually Posh Pshat in the Gemara, but the Chassidus Taiches means a Raisi de Leo. Torah builds a relationship that the Torah and you become synonymous. When you Moichel and you covered, you're Moichel. That means that you're balabas on the Torah that you're learning. So the Rebbe asks an interesting question. What's the mile in it? That we say the Torah is Torah Savayim, is Elokus, Bli Gvul, Aruka Meretz, Mida Rechava Miniyam, and it becomes my Torah. No? It's reduced to my Torah. So what's a mile?
How does it remain the Eibshter's Torah?
So the Rebbe said that the Nekuda is like this Nekuda. The Chiddush in Torah it's like Mokum Einim and Amid. It's a dichotomy. It becomes your Torah, and the Kes Meichel Zayin said it's your Raisi delay, and it remains Torah Savaya. And it's a dichotomy we need to think about because it's very darkasdik. The Rebbe brings there's a very interesting Gemara in Brochus. The Gemara says that Rabbi Meseira said that a Balkari is mutalil matera. When Ezra said Balkari shouldn't learn Torah, he said a Balkari mutalil matera. Why? Because haloi koy dvorai kaish. That it's related to this sugya that Torah is considered like fire. My eish in a mekabel tumah, after in a mekabel tumah. In other words, the Gemara tells us a story. There was a Talmud of Rabbi ben Meseira. Apparently, it was about Keri, and Rabbi ben Meseira heard him like being megamgim, that he was participating in the learning. He was reviewing something in front of Rabbi ben Meseira, but he was rushing through it because he was uncomfortable. He felt that he shouldn't be doing it. So he said, no, calm down. And the Torah is not affected. Keep learning. So there's something at the dichotomy. The Torah remains, that's what Rabbi says, the Dvorai. Because Torah is Dvorai, it always remains in its original pristine nature of Torah, that it's a lokus. It never diminished by the fact that it becomes Torah Soy. That's an amazing chiddush, and it's a partial contradiction that we.
Right.
This is nimna nimnoes.
Right.
The nimna noes of the Oren is pushed in this whole idea. What Chassidus explains the chibur, the yichud. Ayina comes to Torah is pushed. The Mokum in Mamida is pushed symptomatic of what the whole thing of limited Torah means. You're in ganzen one with Torah Savaya, right? It's that you're not a separate years, and nevertheless you're Tomei. And the Torah remains Torah Savaya, and still your Torah. How does that work? If it's your Torah, then why is it not affected by you? Right. And this is a big yesod. But it's both. Fai saying that, hey, just because you're steeped in Torah doesn't mean Mr. Tzaddik. You can be in Shakua and Memtet Sharatum at the same time. But at the same time, it's also a limud that don't stop. Because don't worry, you're not compromising the Torah by learning it. And not only that, the Torah is still Torah Scho, your Torah. We can't call you a Pasha Yisrael because of that. Wow. Because calling you a Pasha Yisrael is calling the Torah Pasha Yisrael. It's an incredible idea what Torah is. The Rebbe was very miyakir people, mechabrim, that learned Torah. The Rebbe didn't care about whether they were, what kind of people they were. Ayid learned Torah, he was going to choshva. But the Rebbe, the whole Inyan, Ayid learned Torah, it's a phenomenon. It's a Inyan. What's on display is a Inyan Eloki, which is nimna nimnoes. Ayid mit all seine Hagbolas, with all his inyanim, right? A likti, who knows what he licked. And at the same time, he and the Elokus is one.
Wow. And that we see from the salamander. After Sharetz Tameh, it's a Tamadic thing coming from fire.
Which is the infant Torah, infant Kedusha. You can feel Musa Benura. Right. You can feel it, Tahar is not in fire. Halodvor Raikreish, Torah is not Mekabel Tumah. It's also an interesting Nekuda because the Rebbe uses the Gemara in Sanhedrin, but the Gemara said that Iket Tefillah is in fire, not in water. Right. So, but Pshat is we can't be table in fire, so the Ibshi created a mikveh for us, right? So the Rebbe explains there's a beautiful verbringen of the Rebbe in Tafshin Chav Hey, maybe Chav Daled was Chav Over, Siyam on Masechet Baba Kama. And the Siyam is gedruckt, of course, anything, it's also mugadik, but there's a part of the Sikha that's not gedruckt, where the Rebbe, at the end of that Siyam, talks about the Inyan Tahara. Tahara b'mikveh. It's interesting. The Rebbe dwells on the last Mishnah in Yuma. Maha mikveh. Mikveh Yisrael. Maha mikveh metaris atmeim. The Rebbe goes into a whole discussion. We need a raya for mikveh that the Eibusha can be with. Kach HaKadosh metaris Yisrael. The mikveh is a mashal that teaches that the Eibusha can be metaris. V'chimi nosan la mikveh koyech l'tahara. The Eibusha. We're using the mikveh as a raya that the Eibusha can be metaris. The Eibusha is the raya of the mikveh member because he said the mikveh should be metaris. So the Rebbe says that Pshat is on Zoy. A Yid wonders, wie kommt es that the Eibusha can be metaris? In Eibusha himself, Atzmus Mehus is metaris a Yid, which is Meshuka in Memtel Sharatuna. Ich allein, Reichetz HaGeshmutzayes B'nei Tzion. The shaila is why? Because only the Eibusha is Tachlas HaTahara, what says Tahara. Not shaykh to that, but Tachlas HaShlemes. That means that there is not shaykh the Inyan for Hepech HaTahara. So Dafke the Eibusha is the one can be Metayer. It is actually, the Rebbe is bringing the Sikha, but there's a Chasam Sofer that says that the reason why a mikveh is Metayer, we learn from a pasuk. Ach mikveh boir mayon yetoyer. So Rashi teaches like in Chumash Parashat Shmini. Ach mikveh boir mayon yetoyer means hatovel bezer yetoyer. Somebody is tovel in mikveh mayon yetoyer. The yetoyer goes on the person is tovel in the mikveh. But then Rashi says another pshat. A mikveh is yetoyer. That a mikveh can never be tummy. So Rebbe says in that Sikha, 1,000,000 people that are tummy going into the same mikveh. The old toyer and the mikveh remains toyer. They don't affect the mikveh remains toyer. The mikveh is immune to tumah. It says that these two pshatim in the pasuk are interconnected. Why is a mikveh metayer others that are tumeim? Because it itself is beyond the inyan from tumah, not shaykh to tumah. Because the mikveh itself is not shaykh to tumah, that's why it's able to be metayer others. The Rebbe is saying that the Eibusha is the only one that can be metayer at tumeim. And the Rebbe there says that the Eibusha created a mitzvah from a mikveh, so we should see a dugma in Olam Hazeh. The Azach, the Kamas is Ishnagei, 1,000,000 people can go through the same. Only 40 saw of Wasser, and it endlessly will metayr to him. Says, "Be'emes is he could feel says be'nura." It brings the same goal. Fire is the emes at the heart. But Zivi Shaykh Hayitz going to fire, so they should, should. But anyways, the Nekuda here is that the Inyan from Torah Savai. I one other Nekuda I want to just mention, which just occurred to me. The Inyan from Eish. Right? We see Talmidei Chachamim, the Eish. Gufan Eish.
Right.
Right? We don't use, there is an Ikit Filusa Benura. Why is Eish chosen as the mashal for Torah? Because fire is the epitome of Tahara, the epitome of Shleimus, right? Shleimus of Kedusha. And we say that through Limud Torah, it becomes Gufan Eish. They become the Eish in Halacha has no mitzias. Halacha says Eish doesn't have a mamoshes. There's a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that by Moitzi Shabbos, you're not chayiv if you moitzi fire, because he has no mamoshes. Legabe Eruvin, legabe Meile, legabe Avodah Zarah, and it can be in Nehena because it's not considered a mitzias. It's dafke the fact that Eish is not a mitzias, that it is the epitome of Tahara, right? It's not a mamoshes. In halacha, it's deemed as something that the inyanim from Hepech HaKedusha is not chal on it because it doesn't have an mitzvah. Definitely because it's not a mitzvah, it can become the mitzvah of that it can be in a place of tumah and yet not affected by it. It's not a steer, and that's only true with Torah, not with mitzvahs.
Right.
Okay. Anyways, I spoke too much.
So let's tie it back firstly to to the Mishkan HaKlali and Mishkan HaPrati, and also see, if we have time, to see why you need Torah mitzvahs, which later the Rebbe is going to get into.
The doc is a good point there.
Yeah. So in general, it's interesting how the Rebbe ties the Gemara Chagigah to Pesha Yisrael. There's mitzvahs, and then Talmidei Chachamim Torah, and from there he builds the whole inyan of the two components of the Mishkan, of the Arin and the Mishkan, based on the Rambam and the Ramban, where the Rambam learns that the Mishkan, the Iker Mishkan, the Avedis HaMishkan was Karbonis, and the Ramban learns that the Arin, that the Shechina of the Eibishter was in the Arin. So there we see also the two components of Torah mitzvahs, how they play out in the Mishkan. But let's jump straight into in Nisava Kadosh Baruch Hu, in Nisava in the Taiva of Dir B'Tachtonim. How is this both accomplished, or why do we need both to fulfill the Dir B'Tachtonim?
Right. So the Rebbe says some oasis there, and Pashas, what the Rebbe is saying is that although Torah accomplishes a yichud, where you become one Metzias, you become Torah. It's synonymous with Torah. Your Metzias is Torah. But it's your Metzias is Torah through what? Through Seichel. But it's not Nimshech in Chetzenis HaElemis, in Gashmis. Right? It remains an inyan which is experienced on a machshava level of an oisik b'Torah, right? Seichel. And in terms of Kedushim Welt, this is in terms of the person. In terms of Welt, it's the same thing. It means that the whatever is nimshach through that is nimshach not in a way it penetrates the chetzenis ha'elam, the gashmis ha'elam. Mitzvahs is the extension of Torah. Torah mitzvahs operate in tandem with each other. A Yid learns Torah and does mitzvahs. They operate in partnership with each other. That your Torah, whatever you mamshach through Torah, mitzvahs pick up and take it further down into the level of Gashmis. So you need both because they complement each other, right? That's the Nekudah.
Right.
I just want to say one thing, just I hope you don't mind. I think it's a without Chassidus, in the Welt, this is so important to teach a misnagid. What the Rebbe does here, you see, in the Welt, Torah is an avrich, a learn Torah, Yemim v'layla, right? Kulei Torah. What does that mean? Is Kulei Kodesh, Kulei Torah, and again, Zayn Daled Ames is like walking in Atmas Kodesh, next to Amud Chacham. So was heißt, and not shaykh to imperfections, right? As the Godel said, and Chassidus, and if you were to say Chas v'Shalom, that this person who is Yom V'Lai learning Torah is not Kula Shleimus, then that's an indictment of Torah, right? How can you say this? If Kol Kula is Torah, Gufam Eish, we can say. And Chassidus says, no, this is Lav Davka. Taket, verkehrt. You are Magbel Torah. You think if Torah is part of him, therefore Torah is affected by what you are. Says Chassidus, no. They're both emes. You are Torah, and nevertheless, Torah is not affected by what you are.
Wow.
It's a. See, the Rebbe starts right away in the beginning saying, "What is Pshat Torah and Ashos Hashchina? Two separate things." It's right away he speaks to the heart of those the Elam HaTorah. This Torah is inyan b'fnei atzmai. They would go along with that medrash very nicely.
Right.
So Torah Ashos Hashchina. Torah bypasses Ashos Hashchina. There's a medrash that says Halavai Oisi Ozu v'Storos Yishamaru. It's to learn, that gets you everything. The whole beauty of this Nekudah is that Torah is betachas hashleimus, and it can be misached with you, even while you can be a schwanz, as we say in the Pashut Chassidische Sprach. Okay, anyways, let's go back to this. And this is Makama Inim and Amida. That's the
right. That's the vart over there.
It's Mida, but it's Mida itself is not Mida. It's okay. Anyway, so you want to go to the last Nikuda with the Ha'oram. Now, I listened to some of the audios, which are beautifully, some beautiful ideas there. A lot of Yonim that I didn't know about Lamed Aleph. And
right.
I mean, I know about Chamishas B'Shvat. We all know the Maimah with Abu Rosh Hashanim, and the Rebbe started a new shturim about being einem in the Welt mit Torah. Verfleets in the Welt mit Torah. Actually, I have a personal story, which was a Bashemske Inyan Tafke. When I went on a shlichus, I wanted to teach Torah on a college campus. I knew that the Rebbe, I heard from Chodakov directly, or the Nusi Gorai told me that he heard it from Chodakov, that the Rebbe was very big on shluchim finding a way to teach Torah on campus. That should be pushed an accredited course, that they recognize. So I tried my best, but I didn't succeed because they looked at me with, you don't have a degree, and so I went to my good chaverim already and the faculty. they looked at me like, so I came in for a Shabbos. It was Pashas Koirach. Must have been Mem Hey or Mem Vov. And the Rebbe spoke that Shabbos, mamish fire. Amadaf verfleets in the Welt mit Torah, Shiur Torah. The Rebbe was. So that Sunday I went for dollars and I thought, okay, it's a Shasa Koisha. I said, the Rebbe, before I left back, I said, the Rebbe, the Rebbe shall help him at the Halamas of Sterim for Shura Torah at the university on this battle there. The Rebbe looked at me and the Rebbe screamed. You could hear in the whole lobby, Amen.
Wow.
A week later, a professor who I'd spoken to about it, in the political science department, says to me, remember like a year ago, you spoke to me about teaching. I spoke then to the chairman. She says, no, Rabbi teaching. The chairman came to me and said to me, you know what? I'm reconsidering. Maybe if you can teach it with him together, we can make it work. And for many, many years, for decades, this shir went on and on. And the Rebbe was very supportive of it. I had brachas from the Rebbe about it. So the Indian that Dafke in a university, which is hepech as far as you can go from Torah. Kfira mamish. In dort zum lernen Torah. Dort is bleibt es dvor reiko eish in a place which is, yeah.
Aren't enemy namida.
Yeah, then verfleets over Torah. So this Ha'oram, the Rebbe is trying to reconcile. The Rebbe is reconciling these two inyanim, that in some places it says that the ikram shach of atzmus is for mitzvahs. The famous sikh of the Rebbe Rashab, kol mitzvahs yachsis ala atzmus.
Right.
And that's the full chassidus. And then Torah is to be megala the oira of that's behind it, right? Because it can be amshach of atzmus, but it's behelim, and the world remains dark. Just like this guy learns Torah. Torah is meir, atzmus is meir, but imem teshara tuma, right? It's nicht meir be'em.
Right.
So nevertheless, so Torah is supposed to be meir ding, right? We learn Torah kike the boy. So now, so here we say the opposite. The amshach of atzmus is through Torah. The role of mitzvahs is as an instrument to extend that amshach also to chetzenis elements. That in gash is also the herren in gashmis. That union of yichud, not only bittul, right? So
right.
The
right.
Okay. Just like in Kodesh Kedoshim, the Makam Ha'oren, Agashim is the Ha'oren, also the hair that goof is a lakus. Not that it's bottled to a lakus, but that the midah itself is einem in a midah, right? That's of the hair in the ganze Welt, right? That's
and how is that accomplished?
When a Yid learns Torah, is mamshich atzmus, and then mitzvahs extend this to
extend that yichud that would have remained.
Right.
Into Gashmi.
L'chayr is the opposite of what it says in other places. So the Rebbe brings out on the Kudah. I don't know if I heard somebody say this, but the Rebbe doesn't say two biurim. It's two nekudas in the same biur. I'm just going to open up the aura there. It's the way I understood it. I mean, I can't voucher, Mishkan Mumche Chassidus, but just my understanding is that the Rebbe is saying two nekudas in here. One nekuda is that there's a darga in Torah, which is Shaykh Motish. The Torah already came down. They say Torah Scholars, Shila Madatonu, right? This Torah, the way it comes down in Ishtalshus. And there is Torah Scholars, the way it's higher than Ishtalshus. The Torah is in Atzilus, but then there is Torah, the way it's even higher than Atzilus. But Torah, the way it comes down in Ishtalshus, their Torah is fakert, incidental to mitzvahs. It facilitates that the Pu'ul of mitzvah should be even from Ora, Meir. That doesn't answer the whole question, because this is Torah the way it's Nimshech or in Shalshus, but the Torah the way Torah is Lamaila, which is connected to Atzmus. So what's it pshat though? So the Rebbe says that Amshachos Atzmus is al idea mitzvahs dafken. The Rebbe says what Lashain is. Mitzvahs are be'etzem Atzmus. There's no question, because the kavanah is Ava Kodesh Baruch Hu is in Atzmus, and he wanted to add b'tachtonim. Now, I don't contradict what somebody else says. To say that what the Rebbe is saying, at least the Fianiyas deity, the Rebbe is saying that mitzvahs are only the reason why he atzmus wants mitzvahs, because he wants a dira b'tachtonim. But the how we through Torah. Listen, this is a little bit ambiguous how you interpret these words, how and why. But to say that mitzvahs are, in other words, like this: mitzvahs are be'emes atzmos. Call you mitzvahs yasal atzmos. There's no question. But mitzvahs atzmos is there behelam. The way it's it says that the whole etzem of the av comes out in the ben, right? But the etzem av is the ruchni. The etzem nefesh of av. But what is the av? The av is a tipo zera, right? So take the whole etzem, the whole floor is there, but it comes down and even gashmi is there. It's totally behelam. Sidon mola metzias, but the zach is encapsulates atzmus, but it's untapped atzmus, and it's not able to materialize itself unless there's something which has in it echoes overtly, openly, begilui atzmus, so it wakes it up. In other words, you need something to be mo'ir, that etzem, that atzmus, which is buried in mitzvahs, in Maisa mitzvahs, Maisa Gashmi of mitzvahs. And the Rebbe is trying to Samach Vov. You look there in Samach Vov, it's an Nekuda which the Rebbe in many memorim talks about. Especially, I think, in the last Basileganis of the Rebbe of Yuchvat, this last Yuchvat, there's a very profound maimah there where the Rebbe talks about, which is miyusad on the Rebbe Reshavas Memorim, there in Samach Vov, that Malchus is Atzmus, right? But Malchus is Atzmus, can't be Moira, can't be. Right. It's hidden in Malchus. Malchus is Malchus. Malchus Yeragler Yerders. It's Mesiachas to Elamis Nifrodim. It's but Atzmus is behelam there. How are you Moira that Kircha Atzmus which is in Malchus? So the infant Oir Gilui. Oir is nicht Malchus. Malchus is the opposite. Malchus is verkehrt, Helem. But the infant Oir, because Oir carries, you can say the sounds of Atzmus. Why? Because Oir is bittel. Oir me'ena moir. Because Oir is not a Metzias, it can be transparent to Atzmus. And Atzmus can be echoed in Oir. Even though Oir is nicht Atzmus. Oir moir is moir. Oir and moir be'ena richt each other. In the same time we say, Dafkin Oir, the Herzach Atzmus. The Rebbe said that because Oir is so not a Metzias, so not, it can become a vehicle for Atzmus too. The Rebbe says in the mind of Yitzhak, that's why it can be Mahava Yesh Mi'ayin. Hagam Yesh Mi'ayin is only in Koich Atzmus, not in Koich Oir. But because Oir is so bottled, so transparent, so not a Metzias, Memele he can have the Koich Atzmus in be Mahava Yesh Mi'ayin B'Poel. And through Oir it happens that Hagam be'etzim is through Atzmus, but it happens through Oir, because Oir is not a Metzias. Because Kol Inyan is me'ena moir, just to be I think it's a good motion for shluchim. The koyach of the Rebbe is but you're not a Metzias. The more you're not a Metzias, the more you have the koyach of Etzem, right?
Right.
So
you're saying here that Sai Mitzvahs and Sai Torah is an expression of Atzmus.
In different ways. In Torah, it's because Torah is not a Metzias.
Right.
The Atzmus is spiegelt sich up there. But not mitzvah Torah itself. Mitzvah is because the etzem of mitzvahs, because das is nisave. And if he's nisave, that means he's there. Lamar says, by a person, if he wants something, the thing is not you. You want something which is not you. Lamar lekemel chizog. When the Eibishter wants something, then that thing becomes this.
Right.
Right? The Eibishter is boicher in you. Because he's boicher, atzmus boicher, that's what we become. Amma nifchar. We become the Amma. What the Eibishter will, and what the Eibishter is mechaven, the kavanah elyon, das macht the Metzias von der Sache. Right? So it's memela when the Eibishter so the Eibishter will mitzvahs, because he wants dira betachtenim, then dort liegt atzmus. Right? But it's atzmus behelem in a right packaged in something which is l'chayra weit from the minyan von atzmus. But darf me'orer sein the minyan. How do you me'orer the minyan? By being megala the echoes of atzmus through Torah. Torah is mamshech atzmus begilui. It wakes up me'orer in mitzvahs. It's emes apnimius koich which von atzmus. That's the way I understand it.
Right. It's interesting. It's interesting that, and the goal is that mitzvahs still remain mitzvahs in its original context of being separated. Like you said, there's two entities. So here you have the echoes of atzmus that comes through Torah and penetrates into mitzvahs or energizes mitzvahs.
Mitzvah, it's koich.
Right, but the mitzvah remains still dir b'tachteinim in tachtein, which is interesting.
Right.
Which is interesting. It doesn't break the tachten.
I can't, because the Eibishter wants a tachten. The Rebbe is one of the nekudas the Rebbe says here, and it's a recurring theme in many mamorim and sichas. The pshat here with the theme is that the tachten remains a tachten.
So this is a recipe. The only way you have to have mitzvahs in one context and Torah in another context to merge them together to create the perfect recipe of dir b'tachteinim. You can't have just Torah. Which
Mrs. Bemis a dichotomy, that it remains a separate thing and yet it's yichud.
Exactly.
There is yichud in a place of distinctiveness.
Exactly.
It's right. It's a dichotomy that we mentioned before in Torah, taken to a much further extent.
Exactly.
That even in the dark of mitzvahs there's a from yichud. And that's mind-boggling.
Right.
Right? In many sikhs, the Rebbe is the dichotomy of the fact that Dafkin, a place where the tachten remains a tachten. Gidrei a tachten.
Yeah.
In Mitzal Gidrei tachten should be a gidrei. This dichotomy is a very fundamental idea in the Rebbe's Mamorim and Sikhs, and it's to some extent in Torah. It's mida, not mida, but it's much more. The emes adira b'tachtenim is Dafkin in mitzvahs where that dichotomy is brought even to a place which has its autonomy. It's l'chayra separate from Elokus, and even there's yichud. This is echet Elokus.
Beautiful. Okay. Thank you, Rabbi Eli. This is a beautiful farbrengen. There's really not much more to say after we covered this ha'ara, and only good things and brachas. L'chaim.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful night.
Keep up the good work, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to study the Sikha more ba'omek, because you gave me the challenge of finding something to say about it. So you're forced to learn. So you did me a favor. So thank you.
You're welcome. It was beautiful. Bye.
I think the fish in Chodos, the Lolele Gayenu, Yerurabi, Yeru, Veiftechu Vashem. I think the fish in Chodos, the Lolele Gayenu, Yerurabi, Yeru, Veiftechu Vashem. I know San Hashem lochem leilo das ve'einayim liros ve'oznayim lishmoya I know San Hashem lochem leilo das ve'einayim liros ve'oznayim lishmoya Yiradai la da da la 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 da la da da ya yam Yiradai la da da la 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 Mi Baruch Hashem Lekei Yisroel Mi Yinoy Lom V'Yadoi Lom Baruch Hashem Lekei Yisroel Mi Yinoy Lom V'Yadoi Lom Omen V'Yomen Hayten de fishi chodosh V'hilo lelekeinu Yiru rabim v'yiro V'yitechu Hashem Hayten de fishi chodosh V'hilo lelekeinu Yiru rabim v'yiro V'yitechu Hashem I know San Hashem lochem Leilo das V'yeinayim liros Ve'oznayim lishmoya I know San Hashem lochem Leilo das V'yeinayim liros Ve'oznayim lishmoya Yiradai la da 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 la 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 Yiradai la da 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 ya yam La 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 Hashem, Lekei Yisroel, Mi Yinoy Lom V'Yadoi Lom Baruch Hashem, Lekei Yisroel.